Welcome to the Marvelous Moms Club podcast, where you'll be not only allowed, but encouraged to dream big dreams and imagine the very best future for yourself and your family. Throw away expectations and perfection and embrace the messy beauty of what it means to be a marvelous mom. I'm your host, Kirsten Tyrell, and I can't wait to help you discover what makes you marvelous. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Marvelous Moms Club. I'm so excited to have my guest that I have today. I don't know how long I've known her. I want to say a year and a half-ish, somewhere in there, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less, but she really truly is a marvelous mom. She has a light and that emanates from her. And it's very rare that I get to say that I know these guests in person. A lot of my guests have come in virtually and I don't ever get to actually see them or meet them. But I do know Michelle, and she is coming at us from Waiting Warriors, which is such an amazing platform. We're going to talk all about it. But I just want to welcome you here to Marvelous Moms today. Thank you for being here, Michelle.
Thank you. It's funny being on the interviewee side. Normally I'm the one interviewing.
I agree. And it actually kind of is a little nerve-wracking because you have more control as the host. There's a different level of responsibility. You got to think fast. You got to be prepared for the next question. But as the interviewee, it's kind of like a lot of trust is involved with like, hey, where are you going to take me? You're the passenger. I'm the driver, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a good thing I trust you.
Right. Thankfully. Okay. So let's give a little bit of background. How many kids do you have total? And what's your mommy situation like currently?
So my mommy situation is I have an almost 6-year-old, a 4.5, a 2.5-year-old, and then a about to come out baby. We're expecting, and they're all girls. So baby girl number 4 could come any day. So it is, I'm a young mom. We've got a whole lot of craziness and a whole lot of emotion, but it's really, really cute all the time.
I love it. A lot of cuteness is happening at your house.
Oh my goodness.
So is it too soon to ask? This is like the most horrible question when somebody's either just had a baby or they're like 39 weeks pregnant like you are. Do you guys think you'll try for a boy, or is this it?
Our family is not complete yet. Whether that's a boy or not, we're not quite sure. But we know that this baby isn't the last baby. So it's not necessarily that we'd be trying for a boy. It'd be fun to do the boy thing. I especially think it's funny that I got all girls because I was a really big tomboy growing up. Like my mom, if you guys could see pictures from me growing up, like my mom had to chop my hair off super short because I would never let her do anything with it. So she just chopped it off so she didn't have to deal with a rat's nest.
My gosh.
I played all sorts of sports. There's way too many pictures of me and my sisters just being super muddy because we would be playing football in the mud or whatever. I hated pink up until my oldest daughter was like 3 years old, and then I finally gave in to accepting it as a pretty color. But, so it'd be fun to do the boy thing. But at the same time, all of our girls are very, very different. And we have one that is like a super frilly, rough, like she will not wear a shirt unless it has some sort of ruffles or sparkles on it.
Oh my gosh. I have a daughter that does that too. And she calls them skirty side shirts. Like they have to have like a skirty end at the bottom. That is so funny.
She has straight up at church said that certain women's dresses aren't pretty because they're just plain, and she doesn't mean it offensively. It's just her style. But then our youngest she wears like 4 shirts. It's an Incredible shirt, a Batman shirt, a family reunion shirt, and then her Uncle Dylan shirt. We had one of her uncles passed away from cancer. So she'll wear that shirt, and then she wears 2 pants, and she will only wear Darth Vader or Spider-Man socks, and that's it. So,
oh my goodness. Oh, you got it. You got it hard. You got the opposite coming your way, which is so adorable. Okay, so mommy of almost 4 girls, which is so fun, and I love it. And there's so much pink and so much cuteness. And then what else about your background? Like, where does Waiting Warriors? I guess we can just dive right into the background story of that and how and why you created that. So if you want to just dive in.
Right. So I am also a Army wife. We got married in April 2012, and in July, my husband joined the Army. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of like a longer backstory of how that all happened, but it wasn't on his radar when we first got married, but kind of in the
Mm-hmm.
background, but kind of not.
Yeah.
But then he joined shortly after. Once we got married, we really felt impressed that that's what we were supposed to do. So he
Mm-hmm.
joined, and then in like 3 weeks later, we found out I was pregnant with our first daughter.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so it's just been 6+ years now of
Mm-hmm.
being in the military, but also being, he's been a student for a lot of it as well, because he is a military chaplain,
Mm-hmm.
which required a big intensive master's degree. So we have had 6 years of him either being not even like full time, but like over full time in school to be
Oh
able to get
man.
stuff done, or he has been either not home at a different part of the state or on the other side of the country for military training. And
Wow.
that's pretty much how the last 6 years have been. We counted it once. I remember like after the first 2 years of our marriage, we counted up all the days with all the trainings, and he had been gone for at least like a third, almost to half of it. And
Wow.
each year has just kind of fluctuated between that half to a fourth of it being gone. And
Mm-hmm.
then in last September, he went active duty. So he's now an active duty Army chaplain. We're fully immersed in this life. He's at the 101st Airborne Division. So it's as, they say, as hua as you can get, just like
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
just as intense as you can get. But so the Waiting Warriors came about because about 2 years ago, I found myself with three little girls. Our first three are just over 3 years apart.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, they were really close. And he had to be on the other side of the country for an entire summer. And I
Oh.
just like we couldn't afford to ever go visit him. He wasn't
Mm.
allowed to leave. We weren't, because of the type of training. Sometimes with trainings you can go, sometimes you can't. With this
Mm-hmm.
training, it was, they call mandatory bachelor status. So
Wow.
it just was me kind of writing it on my own. And I had kind of, I think a lot of listeners can understand the, like, you're a young mom, you kind of just get stuck in being a mom and you lose yourself. But I
Mm-hmm.
also just felt stuck is the best word I can think of, because
Yeah.
I didn't feel like, even logistically, I had any options to do anything other than stay at home with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I,
Literally
not,
no other way. Like
yeah,
there's no window, there's no back door.
yeah,
This is now my life and this is what I have to do. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
And
that's stuck.
I 100% had to figure it out on my own. If I needed anything, there wasn't anything my husband could do. And that had been kind of how it had been the whole time we had had kids, just because he was always so busy. But this just really kind of threw it in my face even more. And
Mm-hmm.
I, but I also, I'm admittedly a very stubborn person. And I felt like I should be able to do it all on my own, and I should be able to do this mom, military wife thing, and I should be strong enough to figure it out, because I do have a strong faith background. I grew up right by Camp Pendleton, which is one of the biggest Marine bases, and I grew up in a military community, and I saw these other women do it, so I should be able to do it. And I should be able to figure out how to help my kids, and I should be able to figure out how to make this work with my family.
Yeah. Don't you love
And
that should? Like, where does that come
yeah,
from? Why
I
just because you've done this or this or this? It's like, oh, I watched swimming on the Olympics my whole life growing up. I should know how to swim. Like, it's, I mean, I get that it's not that extreme, but isn't it funny what we tell ourselves? Like, you should be stronger than this. You're more capable than this. And it's different than a pep
Mhm.
talk. It's like a shaming thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I should be better at my life than I am. I shouldn't be human. I should be superhuman. And I hate that. And it's a fine line between striving to be a better version of yourself and feeling like you have to be a better version of yourself or you're failing at life, which is just not true. Because I was telling my sister this the other day, sometimes showing up as a mom and like succeeding is seriously just getting out of bed. There are so many women who can't even do that. And honestly, for various reasons. So being able to do that and show up and be alive for your children is sometimes like the best you can do. So anyway, I digress, but go ahead.
No, but that's a good point, because that's exactly what I was about to say. There was a day where my oldest daughter was struggling pretty hard with dad being gone. But she was just manifesting it in ways that I hadn't read about with military kids, or I just wasn't expecting with her personality. So, like,
Yeah.
my husband would FaceTime and she just wouldn't even want to be around, or she's just acting out in other ways. But I mean, she was also like 3 or 4. So, but there was a day where she literally screamed at the top of her lungs for about an hour, just arguing with me. I can't even remember exactly what we were arguing with. I remember she had found some sort of stick in the backyard and had used it to hit me. And I had told her like she could play with that stick, but if she hit me, then it was going away. And that just turned into this big thing. And there was this moment where I locked her in her room, because that just had to be done. And then I was in my room with my back up against our closet. I had my little 1-year-old baby and my other daughter, both of them just crying because they could sense the craziness, and I just lost it. And I called my husband, and he just felt so helpless because there was nothing he could do. And I just remember saying, like, I don't know what to do. And I don't know if I can do this anymore. And he said one of the best things ever. And he just said, I love you, but I think you need to call my friend Erica, who was also a military spouse. And she was a really good friend, but like, and we would talk all the time, but he just said she might know something to say. And that was a really hard phone call to make. And I actually didn't even make it. The next day she called me, and I like started crying the second that I saw her name on the phone. But after that conversation, I really realized that the phrase "it takes a village" applies to the moms too. And it's not like it takes a village to raise a kid, but it takes a village to keep a mom healthy because of everything we do. And whether that is something as extreme as being a military spouse or any other mom situation, even if you quote unquote just have one child, like that's still a whole lot of craziness that happens with one child. And from that point on, just the idea sparked in my head of I need to hear how other women are handling different situations with the military, and just this lifestyle that we live. Not that it is, I don't like to think that it's harder than anything else. I think that hard is hard, and it's not a competition to see if a deployment is worse than, a police wife whose husband is on a graveyard shift. I think they're just both hard, and they're both unique situations. But I just needed to hear what other spouses and moms were going through and how they were handling it or not handling it. And I couldn't find that resource anywhere like I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I created it and I started a podcast. You actually were like a huge inspiration to me.
Oh.
Because I just remember hearing a few times about how you wanted to hear from other moms and create this community, and you just did it. There was nothing that really qualifies a lot of people who start things,
Right.
but you just start them. And so I started a podcast and I started interviewing other military and first responder loved ones. And it has been almost a year now, and it has been life-changing. Like, if
Oh my gosh, I
nothing
love it.
else, it's helped me hear all sorts of stories. And it's just a place where we can talk with each other and learn from each other and grow together, because then we have a village, and it's really, really awesome. I like
Oh
it
my
so
gosh,
much.
I love it. I love it so much. It makes me so happy. It really is like the tale is all this time when you need something and you're searching for it, you realize it's not there. And I'm sure there's something out there, right? Like, I've interviewed other military spouses. I know that there's communities and support groups and stuff, but the way that you were searching for it, it wasn't there. And so
Yeah.
that's where miracles really are born from. And I literally was sitting here like trying not to cry when you said your friend called you the next day, because that's such like
Right.
a spiritual, amazing experience, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it does take a village, and I've never heard anybody say that. And I love that you said that. It doesn't just take a village to raise the children. It takes a village for a mom to stay healthy while raising children. And we're not talking eating her vegetables. We're talking, I just came from Denver. My sister had a baby, and then you witness all over again after you're out of the phase of having babies. You kind of, not that you forget, unfortunately, you never forget all the things, because you want to remember what you've done for your children, so you like them even when they're horrible. But like, just seeing the recovery that has to happen after having a baby. And it was kind of hard to leave emotionally, because I just wish that I could live next door and take care of her as she goes through that. But the cool thing is, I can hope and pray that there are women in her community who live nearby that can kind of come to her aid and support her when her family can't be there, or when her, you know what I mean? Like, her husband's at work. So I love that you created a community where it's specifically for these kind of women, because it's such a need, and you filled a need. And to say that it's growing and that it's like been life changing, even for you, I'm sure you'll understand this now that you have your own podcast, is it always benefits you the very most. And then you're like,
Yeah.
it's cool that it's helping all of you guys, but I'm actually sitting here in this chair getting to encounter every call. And I've grown so much, and I learned something from every person who comes on my podcast. And then, I just become stronger and stronger, and have all these little tools in my arsenal now from women who have come, and they've mastered different areas of life, and they've mastered parenting in certain aspects. And so I don't know. I love that you created that. And I love that your life has in turn become stronger and better. And the fact that you're pregnant with a fourth just shows that you're in such a better place, and that you're wanting more children. You chose to not be defeated by your circumstances. You chose to like rise above them and find a way. And this is just proof, when you are serving others, you're always served in return, not in a selfish way, but it always comes back. It's like a boomerang effect, right?
Yeah.
So I love it. I'm so
Yeah.
happy for you.
And that really is like a huge testament, because I was honestly really scared to get pregnant with number 4, especially knowing that we were going active duty. I knew where
Yeah.
we were going, and I knew what the tempo would be like,
Yeah.
just with being in training and the constant deployments. And yeah, just because the big ironic thing is, my husband's supposed to deploy within a month. We don't have an exact date, but the baby's due, and we don't know exactly how long, but he's going to be gone. And the last few weeks, I have just found myself so anxious and stressed out. And because I'm just thinking, like, this is not your best plan, Michelle. You're having 4 little kids, 6 and under, and your husband's
Oh
going
my
to be
gosh.
on the other side of the country. Like, you didn't really think this through.
Yeah.
But it's so funny, because like you said, like, I have those tools now. And it's
Yeah.
the awesome thing about this is I'm not approaching it as like I am the authority, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
let's learn together. Because it was so funny, because my husband, one day we were talking about it and I was just like, I'm freaking out. Like I want you to go because I know he's needed out there, but at the same time I don't want you to go. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, you need to listen to your own podcast. And
Mm,
I had
I
actually
love it.
just gotten published in an article. He's like, and you need to read your own article of these things and remind yourself of these things that you've learned. And it was awesome because it's like, oh, where I wanted this resource for this very reason.
And you created it
And
and you're
I
not even indulging in it.
and I have been, and that's just like the funny thing is I think we learn things and we need to relearn things. But it's also been really awesome because I started out with like just the podcast, and the last few months I focused a lot more on providing more help online just to make our lives easier. Like, what are ways that things that I can help find, or things that I've learned that help make my life easier so we can focus more as waiting warriors to help our family thrive. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just been really awesome because I've been intentional about expanding that, there's been more feedback just from the community of like, this is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
or there's women who've been doing this for 15 years and they're like, I wish I had this when I was a brand new military wife,
Military
or
mama.
first, yeah, or a police wife. We have a lot of first responders too. And it's just awesome because we get to be there for each other. And I kind of feel like I've had that feeling too of what you said with your sister, of being on the other side of the country from your family and feeling helpless, like you can't do anything. But then I've had my sisters say that it's 10 times worse for them because they can't just fly out to wherever we are. And we move
Mm-hmm.
often. So, it's not even a chance for them to keep up with us. But it's providing those resources and showing that there is a way that we can take care of each other, even from
Mm-hmm.
a big distance. And it's just, I like it a whole lot
I
because
bet.
I just like that we're able to do things to make the world smaller
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh yeah.
connect with each other, even though you move all the time or
Yeah.
you are separated from family. Like, I know you just moved away from your family and it's hard, but
Mm-hmm. And we did it by choice, and it's still hard because it's like, what were we thinking in part of it? Like we just lost our whole support system. We have to rebuild it, and we have to actually pay for it now.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is. I think it's really cool that your husband gave you that directive of like, go basically practice what you preach. Like, go read your stuff. I've done
Mm-hmm.
that before where this actually recently happened after I did that glow event that you came
Mm-hmm.
to. I was sitting there and I was like, I'm sitting here telling a room full of women to live their big dreams. And I'm over here scared to do bigger things with my own life. And I need to listen to some of my own content. I need to listen back to my own keynote anytime I get afraid because I know all these things. It's in my core, but it's just proof that you need that personal, like, reminder all the time. Just like even bad things are consistent, right? Like,
Yeah.
not studying things and listening to things that are inspiring are going to tear you down just as fast as listening to them is going to bring you up. So, and I do love that you said it makes the world a little smaller. I've been blown away by how interconnected people are, even across the globe, not just in the United States and people I meet who know people in Utah or in California, but just global kind of stuff. It's just really, really bizarre and bonkers. And I love that you've created a space where you're able to grow and flourish and where so many other people are. So, what would you say has been like a highlight for you as far as opening up this community? I know you mentioned like being able to really step into a space of serving and simplifying other people's lives, but what would you say like a big turning point was? I kind of want to paint a picture too of you started this about a year ago. And
Mm-hmm.
so where people think that they're going to put something out there, it's going to be this instant success. What has kind of been your process in building this tribe of the waiting warriors?
It's been slower than I would like. I kind of thought, oh, I'm just gonna push publish and this resource will be available and people will just
I will
flock to
change the
it.
world.
Yeah, I will change the world. Especially since I knew like a podcast like this there are very few military spouse or first responder spouse podcasts. But I knew that one like this didn't exist. And
Yeah.
I knew a ton of people wanted it because I talked to people about it for 6 years. And so I thought I would just hit publish and it would explode on its own. But I realized that the funny thing about things existing for the first time is that nobody knows it exists. So it's been
weird, huh?
Yeah. It has like it steadily grew and it's been growing at a good rate, but it's been funny how the principles of life and business apply to everyone. Like no matter how awesome your thing is or how much you think that you'll be the overnight person, like nobody's the overnight person in anything in life, whether that's, making a lot of money or getting good at cooking. Like it's just overnight just doesn't happen. But it's been like this almost at the year mark has been finally when it's getting a lot of traction and people are finally talking about it more. So it's, life just doesn't happen overnight. And I've learned that the last year.
So annoying, isn't it?
I know.
But going into that, I know like you kind of mentioned to me too, like I was talking to Ben about this morning on you look at people and sometimes you might feel sorry for them because of their life circumstances. And this is something I feel like I have to tread lightly with because I know a lot of people have hardships. I'm not talking about cancer and deployment and stuff like that. I'm talking about things we do have control over and how, if you heard that saying, like, I would give anything to play piano like that, or I'd give anything to have $1 million. And I said, but would they really? I know you mentioned in like your questionnaire to me, there's a fine line between laziness and self-care, right?
Yeah.
Like self-care was you starting a podcast.
Yeah.
Self-care was not, I'm going to just take bubble baths for an hour a day and call my friend over to watch my kids so I can be lazy. It was, I have to solve this problem, not just for me, but for other people. And I feel like, again, proceed with caution. This isn't like, guys, go try and change the world every time you feel sad. Sometimes self-care is a bubble bath, but I love that you kind of addressed that with you wouldn't even have had the success over the last year of putting something out there had you not started with some kind of problem solving mentality instead of just like a woe is me, I'm going to eat brownies all day. I deserve this because I have 3 little kids at home and my husband's in the military. You know what I mean? So I love that you have that perspective.
Well, and that's kind of been the biggest thing that's been life-changing for me over the last 2 to 3 years. It's been like I was stuck. And like I said before, logistically, everything made me stuck. And I think I had I had 10 reasons that I could give you where everybody would nod their head and be like, yeah, you have every excuse in the world to binge on Netflix every night and to cry yourself to sleep and to not, I don't know, like I ran a 10K and that took a lot of work and extra planning, or to not open up a podcast, or not even just like not have any hobbies for myself. I had every single reason to not do that and to stay stuck. But what changed is that I realized that the lazy way isn't really normally, at least in my perspective, and like you said, there are hard things, but the lazy way I found isn't normally the easy way of living. It's not the enjoyable way of living. And I just had to realize that I could either stay in the miserable life that I really was living. I wasn't super happy. It was really, really hard. Or I could make a happier life for myself. And that did require a lot of work. It wasn't just the podcast. The podcast took a lot of work, but just the work on myself and just getting out of that mentality of I can't do this because it just it took
you take your power back, right?
Yeah. Because I
You
think
stop giving all the power to the circumstances and you find a way, you've somehow found a way to squeeze some juice still out of the lemon, right? Like,
right. And it's like, I remember listening to, I started listening to a lot of Jody Moore and Rachel Hollis, and it just cracked me up every time, especially when like Rachel Hollis would say something like, you don't have any time, but how many of you can tell me what just happened with Games of Thrones or whatever?
mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I, when I was listening to that, I didn't even have, like, I wasn't even watching a lot of TV. Like, I was just cleaning my house at night and then going to bed. But like, I found, wait, no, I'm cleaning my house. So while I'm cleaning my house, I can listen to something that will teach me. Like, I started listening to a lot of business and marketing podcasts because I was a clothing construction major in college. That's what I got my bachelor degree. I didn't know how to run a business or how to start a podcast or to upload a podcast onto online so other people could hear or anything like that. And like, I didn't feel like I had any time to learn that. But I took the control back and said, no, I can make 10 minutes up here. And then the more I did that, the more I realized I can make this work. And I just kind of realized what my priorities really, really were in life. And then I didn't care if other people disagreed with the way I was doing things. Like, it just...
Yeah, that's where it has to start. It really does. I totally agree with you. And look at where you've come. Like, and that doesn't even mean look at where you've come with like, and now you've just created a life-changing product, but you have for many people. And now it's just a matter of getting more and more people to use it and take advantage of it and help them. And that's usually that process sometimes is the hardest one to stick it through. But if you look at all successful people, they do the same thing for a really long time. They don't hop to something else. So I think you're on the right track, and I'm really excited to see where it continues to grow to, because I think it's a need that you're filling. And I hope everybody listening who it's relevant to, and even the people it's not relevant to, I think every guest on here is an example of following your dreams, living your life that in a way that's going to make you feel joy and make you feel fulfilled, and not accepting limitations as the directive for how you're going to live your life. So you're a perfect example of that. And I just think you're awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
It's just like, you just don't have to accept the situation or what life hands you as the end all be all. Like, you just have a lot more control. And if nothing else, kind of like we said, like, if nothing else, the Waiting Warriors has helped me realize that for myself. And I'm still nervous about the deployment coming. I'm still nervous about having 4 little kids. And I know there will be the craziest, most miserable days coming up. But I also know that by the time he comes home, my family will still be not only like still together, but we will have still done something to progress during that point. And that's what I love. That's what gives me so much hope. And that's kind of what I hope that the Waiting Warriors helps convey to everybody else, that even though this thing that's normally like for military, it's normally like the deployment, or for first responders, it's the year long of having a really crappy shift and family being all sorts of, just the schedule being all sorts of messed up. But like, even that hardest thing that everybody looking in always says, I could never do that, that you can find a way to still really thrive during that, instead of just be the puppy with their head barely over the water, you know? Like, I just don't accept that has to be our reality for the whole time period.
I love it.
You know,
I love it. And I just said this to Ben the other day. The reason I have been able to do what I've done is I don't accept the limitations. People like to say, oh, you have to do this and this and this to have this result. And I'm like, I don't accept that. And I don't accept that because these people are limited by this, that I have to choose to accept that limitation. And those really are forward thinking thought leaders and influencers that make the biggest difference. So I love what you're doing. Keep on doing it. To finish out this episode, I want to hear 2 things. Number 1, what you're reading right now. And number 2, what makes you a marvelous mom?
What I'm reading right now is actually Girl Stop Apologizing I got that
Yes.
package from Glow, and that has been
Awesome.
super interesting. It's been a really interesting read. It's funny because my husband did a master's program, so he can never read anything and just take it for as it is. Like, he's always got to be like, well, what's the
Dissect it.
what's the bias in it, and what's this? So it's been kind of funny
Yeah.
to talk with him about it, but I'm not digging Rachel Hollis at all. It's just been even like more enlightening. She makes you think, and everybody needs to think. All women need to think.
Right.
But
They do. I agree.
that's been yes. Sorry, I just thought of like all those funny quotes from all the movies of like, you know what happened when women start thinking and dangers and stuff.
Danger, the world will change.
Yeah. Or like
I love it.
The new Beauty and the Beast, like, she's reading. Like, why does a girl need to read?
Right.
Sorry. I think of like funny random quotes.
I love it.
So that's what I'm reading. And then the last question was,
what makes you marvelous?
What makes me marvelous? What makes me a marvelous mom is that I try. I used to put a lot of expectations on myself. Like, I grew up in a big family. I'm one of 8. My dad's one of 12, and I just always wanted a big family. And I babysat all the kids, and I would babysit a lot of kids, and I'd do it for weekends. And I was like, I've got this as a mom. And I thought that I was just going to walk into motherhood, and it was going to be the easier part of life for me. And I realized that that's not the case. But I had to let go of those expectations and just realize that the most important thing that I can do is just try. And I fail a lot of times, but I just keep on trying to ask for forgiveness for my kids and then try again the next day. And I think that's what makes me a marvelous mom, is that if nothing else, my kids will know that mom said sorry and then tried again the next day. But
yeah, I love it. I love it so much. There's no right or wrong answer to that question, but I do love hearing the variety. And I love hearing like just, how different moms are approaching the grace they give themselves and like what really they consider to be their like redeeming qualities in the hardest job in the whole world. So I love your answer and I love you. And everybody go find Michelle. Tell them where they can find you on social media and your blog address.
So Facebook and Instagram, I'm honestly on Instagram more, and then just kind of like push stuff to Facebook because it's a little bit more fun, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's just The Waiting Warrior on both of those. And then the blog is The Waiting Warriors with an S.com, and the podcast is the same. And you can find the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play.
All the places.
All those places.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your story here. It's appreciated. And everybody go follow Michelle. And if you have a friend that is a waiting warrior, make sure that you tag them and tell them all about her. I will post about this on Instagram as well. So go follow along on Marvelous Moms Club. And we will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day, Michelle.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to take action right now, you're feeling inspired and you're feeling enlightened, and you really want to own this role as a marvelous mom, go to the website marvelousmomsclub.com/me and create your own personal Marvelous Moms manifesto. That is a tongue twister. marvelousmomsclub.com/me. You go fill in some great information, and in the end, you'll have a beautiful manifesto to display where only you can see or the whole family can see, where you can really, really own your role as a marvelous mom and step inside those goals and those ambitions and dreams that you have to become an even more marvelous mom to your beautiful family. So again, marvelousmomsclub.com/me. We will see you over there.